Glad to be with you on this Thursday morning. It's the 7th of August. The weekend is just around the corner. When we get to this Saturday, we're going to be 3 weeks from the opening Saturday, the first full Saturday of the college football season. This is Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Streaming at supertalk.fm, SuperTalk TV. Some of you have asked about podcast, and there's a technical issue that we've been trying to work through. They are automatically uploaded, and we're trying to figure that out and get them back online for you with all of the shows from SuperTalk. Mike Hurst joins us now. He is a former U.S. attorney and is chair of the Mississippi Republican Party. Mr. Hurst, good morning. It's been a little while. Good to see you.
Great to see you, Richard. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. Let's pick up, if we can, to start things off with what we were talking about before the break, and that's some of these wide-ranging tariffs that went into effect officially at 12:01 Eastern Time this morning, late last night, if you prefer to look at it that way. And these have got, now that well, I guess specifically with the executive order yesterday, 21 days until they actually go into effect. We have not seen some of what many economists and experts and partisans thought was going to happen. Rampant inflation, some of the other doomsday scenarios that they've predicted. But there are some signs that economically maybe things are slowing down a little bit, most recently with the jobs report that was adjusted and President Trump was quite frustrated about earlier this week. So as we sit here, 7 months or so into this administration, this tariff policy has been talked about and talked about and talked about. Finally, it's going into effect. What's your thought when you look at this from a conservative politics standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to look at is the history. Under the Biden administration, our trade deficit soared to $1.2 trillion in 2024. We could not sustain that continued trajectory if we expected our country to do well and our people to do well. You know, our middle class was sold out. Our rural small towns, like where I grew up, the manufacturing base was decimated. But for Trump stepping in, doing things, as you stated, critics have just lambasted him about, but stepping in and stepping up for Americans and putting America first again, this is what it takes. And we see it in the results. We see it in the trade deals he's done with the UK, with the European Union, with Japan. I mean, yeah, the critics can keep complaining and saying what they want, but the president is bringing jobs back to America and manufacturing back to America.
You know, the interesting thing, or one of the interesting things to me about this is from the outset, Donald Trump admitted that there may be some short-term pain. What we didn't know, and honestly, probably what we don't know, is what short-term means. Like, if you have to define that, because I think we all know if you do things that are difficult financially, it takes some time. You know, unless you win that $460 million Powerball on Saturday night, which, you know, there's a chance for all of us, I guess. If you may, even like within your own personal finances, if you say, hey, we're going to attack this debt or we're going to invest in this thing, the results don't happen overnight.
That's right.
How long can the American economy or Trump voters be patient to allow this to really play out?
Well, I think it is a long-term strategy, and I think it's the right strategy. And it's because we have become so used to cheap things, and cheap things at the expense of our neighbor, at the expense of our friends who can't find those manufacturing jobs anymore. For too long, politicians have sold those jobs and those livelihoods to the highest bidder overseas, and we've been taken advantage of as a country. And that stops with this president. This president is putting respect in the global affairs of America again, is putting respect to the American people. And again, we have to balance, you know, what is it worth for your neighbor to be able to have a job down the street and be able to raise his family and his kids in a community where people come together and there are jobs. I mean, yeah, there might be short-term consequences, absolutely. But anything that is worth doing is going to have some of those short-term consequences. And I think at the end of the day, America and the American people are going to be better off for this.
To me, the bigger question, though, with regard to the timeline is we get to midterms in a hurry, right?
Yep.
When Inauguration Day happened, we're like, all right, 2 years from now, you've got new, midterm elections that will have happened, I guess, 2 months prior to that.
That's right.
And, man, that clock ticks fast.
Yep.
7 months in at this point, so we're now, 17 months?
17 months.
I mean, that happens fast, and so you have to try to get things done quickly. And the appetite for a long-range plan that takes a long time to get results, we're not great with patience.
No, and that's fair. That's absolutely fair. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do something that is long-term, that is generational building like this is, you have to have a little discomfort up front. And right now, we have to remember, the American people have to remember, during COVID, when we were trying to get medicine and things from overseas, we were so dependent on other countries to provide that stuff. We have become so dependent on other countries providing defense-related technology and weapon systems. If we continue to offshore that type of stuff and not do it here, while at the same time being taxed with tariffs by other countries and not having that reciprocal relationship, we're going to continue to go down in history as a failed country. And that's what President Trump is standing against. And that's what he campaigned on, and that's what he's delivering his first 7 months in office.
When you think about global affairs, and we'll talk about some Mississippi stuff coming up here in just a couple of minutes, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, what India is doing with regard to, are they going to keep buying Russian oil or not? What's going on in Israel with Gaza? It's like there are these multiple high wire acts that are going on, and there's no net and there's no safety harness, and you're trying to balance all of these things at the same time. It really is a tightrope, and there's not a lot of margin for error.
No, there's not. But let's keep in mind this. In the first 7 months of this administration, they have acted. They have bombed Iran.
That is true.
They have put those penalties on India for doing what they did. Look at the last 4 years. Nothing, and I mean nothing, Richard, was done with any consequences to any nation that went against America. The Biden administration said there were all these red lines and things that other countries shouldn't do that were not in the interest of America. But when those countries did those things, the Biden administration did not lift a finger to enforce or to hold those countries accountable. That's changing. And you can see it on the global stage. America is respected again, and that's what we need.
Going back to the midterm conversation, that, again, now 17 months away, we talked about this yesterday. There was a reaction from Democrats after Donald Trump won by some of the high-level talkers that, the Democrat Party just learned a lesson. And we've got to recalibrate the message and see some of the things that Americans voted on when they voted for Donald Trump and change their messaging and change some of their strategy.
Did they say that? Because I haven't seen that, Richard.
Well, that's it. They said that immediately after on some of the shows, like, hey, we got to come up with a better message. But that lasted for about 3 weeks.
Right.
And then they have gone right back to Trump is bad, Trump is evil, if you support this, you're a Nazi, and so on and so forth. What is the strategy of Democrats right now?
If I knew that, I wouldn't be sitting here with you. I'd be some think tank bloviating on amazing things. Look, here's the deal. Not only have they not fulfilled what they said they were going to do and try to recalibrate and get back on track, they've gone even further to the left. I mean, they just elected a socialist in the Democratic primary of the largest city in America, who wants to turn everything, all private industry, into government-run things. I mean, that's what they're doubling down on. And if their leaders
then Elizabeth Warren yesterday or a couple of days ago joins Mandami and says, hey, this is the way forward. This is the message for the Democrat Party going forward.
Look, I love it. I hope Elizabeth Warren keeps doubling down on socialism. I hope AOC continues to be the leader of that party, because if they do, we keep winning elections. Because at the end of the day, that party is all about more government control, less freedom, higher taxes. And the Republican Party is absolutely the opposite.
Sean Hannity had Stephen A. Smith on as a guest a couple of days ago. Stephen A. Smith, the sports guy who's kind of dived into politics a little bit. He's a loud talker and is sometimes entertaining. And Hannity made some reference to AOC as the leader of the party or whatever, Mandami, Chuck Schumer, whomever. And Stephen A. Smith pushed back. He's like, that's not the leader of the party. He said, who is? And he said, that's the problem. There is no leader of the Democrat Party right now.
Yeah.
Will that emerge?
Yeah, Elizabeth Warren, AOC, Bernie Sanders. That is the National Democratic Party.
We'll pull it in a little closer to home. We'll talk some Mississippi politics. We had special elections earlier this week with very low voter turnout. We'll get Mike Hurst's reaction to that. He's the chair of the Republican Party in the state of Mississippi, former U.S. attorney as well. More coming up. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi. Mike Hurst is my guest, chair of the Mississippi Republican Party, former U.S. attorney, practicing attorney as well. Have you ever worked as a judge?
Never. Do not aspire.
Okay.
When do you actually quit practicing to be an attorney and become one?
You never stop practicing. We're always practicing. Practice makes perfect.
Well, I asked that because I suppose it's all intertwined. Your role as chair of the Republican Party and also a former U.S. attorney, but there are a couple of things that are happening. A couple of conversations. You've got the redistricting conversation in Texas, and we just went through a redistricting saga here in Mississippi with some of what was said had to happen by the courts. When you see what the Attorney General in Texas is doing, Ken Paxton, for the legislators in Texas that kind of bailed on the vote to try and block that redistricting plan from happening, what is the likelihood that that appeal to the Supreme Court in Texas gets upheld, and some of those legislators are removed from office?
Man, you're asking me a legal question, Richard, that I have not read the briefs. I have not read the opinions. What I can tell you is I like the idea. I like the concept, and here's why. If you are elected, if the Democratic representatives are elected by the people to do a job, and they refuse to show up and do that job, how is that not abandoning your post? It's not like they accidentally missed work. They got sick from work. They affirmatively chose to run away from the job that they were elected to do. And if that's not abandonment, I don't know what is.
If you did that in the military, you could be discharged, court-martialed.
Private sector, you're fired.
If you did that in a private sector job, you would be terminated.
Absolutely.
But if you do that as an elected official, well, we'll see what happens. But the second part of that, so the larger redistricting conversation brings up this idea that so many people have thrown out, some at the congressional level, about a midterm census, redoing the census and not counting illegals. And on the surface, I completely agree with that. But I think there's a constitutional question there, because doesn't the United States Constitution say that all persons shall be counted, not all legal citizens shall be counted? When you look at that, I mean, that is a serious court battle if we actually go down that road, isn't it?
I think so. I'll have to pull out my Constitution and remind myself.
I thought you had that memorized.
I do. But, yeah, I think what the Democratic strategy has been over the last 30, 40 years is exactly what you said, which is open up our borders, flood in as many illegal aliens as you can, have them populate, have them counted so that Democrats have a permanent majority in the United States of America. And fortunately, this president has stopped that. We're looking at right now, Richard, we're looking at the first time, potentially the first time in 50 years of American history that we have net migration out of the United States.
Yeah.
When the last 4 years we've had the biggest illegal immigration into the United States, the president has reversed those fortunes, has secured our border, and now we are not seeing our country overrun and invaded like we did during the Biden administration. And
it was the single biggest issue in the election.
Absolutely.
And Donald Trump has done what he said he was going to do on that particular item.
And I will tell you, Mississippi led on this charge. When I was U.S. Attorney, we had the largest single-day immigration raid of multiple sites in one state in our nation's history. Go back almost 17 years ago, we had the largest single-day immigration raid at one facility in Mississippi. We have been leading on this issue in Mississippi because Mississippians prefer their politicians, their elected officials, to actually enforce the laws that their representatives passed. And we haven't seen that from Democrats in decades.
Turnout was really low on Tuesday. It was largely incumbents that stayed in those seats. There was a focus on DeSoto County. There was a focus on areas of the Pine Belt. What did you make of the results from Tuesday's special elections? No runoffs. Next time we're going to have an election will be in November for these seats.
That's right. Yeah, I think I expected what happened. I mean, in these special elections, you generally have low turnout, and normally the person who wins those elections are the ones who can actually turn their voters out. And I think you saw that whether it was in District 1 up in DeSoto County, District 42 down in Jones County, District 44 down in Hattiesburg. I mean, you saw those individuals turn out. What I'm most interested in, I think, come November are the general elections in District 2 up in the DeSoto County area. We've got a great candidate, Charlie Hoots, former alderman in South Haven, former deputy sheriff up there. And then in District 11, we have Kendall Pruitt as a businessman in DeSoto County running against an incumbent Democrat. So I would really like to see those seats being taken by Republicans.
What did the results in District 42 say to you? Where that's where Don Hartness won, I think, and did so with like 70% of the vote. That was a little bit of a strange election because of some familial issues that were going on with the candidates there. What though does that say to you about Don Hartness winning in the way that he did? Look,
I know Don. Don's a good conservative. I know Robin. Robin's a good conservative. I think at the end of the day. Don ran on local issues that people in Jones County and the surrounding area cared about. And Robin did a good job, but at the end of the day, Don got more people to the vote to the polls than Robin did and pulled that one out.
Obviously, at a local level, there is still a significant amount of sway carried by Chris McDaniel. He was supporting Don Hartness, and some of Chris McDaniel's supporters were obviously there supporting. What about it at a larger level? What's the level of influence that exists at this point for Chris McDaniel, who has tried and failed for some larger offices?
I can't really answer that. What I can tell you is I think if those candidates who are running for office just go back to the basics, go back to the Mississippi Republican Party's platform, and if you run on that platform, I can almost guarantee you will be elected because Mississippians want conservative policies. And if you look at those who were elected Tuesday, those individuals ran on that platform.
There was an announcement by Brooke Rollins earlier this week, the Secretary of Agriculture, that a waiver was being issued for 6 states to put a ban on SNAP benefits for the purchase of unhealthy foods, sugary drinks, candies, and other kind of junk food that goes on in there. Mostly southern states, but I think Colorado was mixed in with that as well. Do you see that being a road that Mississippi looks to go down as well? We know that there are a lot of people that rely on SNAP benefits in the state of Mississippi, but we also know that the health outcomes in our state are not particularly good.
Yeah, I think it's a good policy to have, and here's why. If government is providing assistance to low-income individuals for food, and if the food they're able to buy with that government assistance is terrible food that just makes them unhealthy, and then those same individuals are relying upon government health care to make them better, why would we spend money on such a terrible, vicious cycle that only hurts our fellow citizens? Absolutely. I think they should ban that kind of stuff.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. We'll have the governor on Wednesday of next week, and that's one of the things that we'll ask him about, how closely he's watching that and what effect it's having in other states. The economic development announcements continue to come. That has been, in my mind, and I think you would agree here, the hallmark of the Tate Reeves
absolutely
gubernatorial administration. That has been his focus from day one. Similar to what we were talking about with Donald Trump. Trump said, we're going to focus first on the border, and they've acted on that. Since he was running for the governorship here in Mississippi, Tate Reeves said, we're going to focus on economic development. That's what they have done. Is there a slowdown coming in your mind, or are these deals going to keep on coming?
Look, I know Tate Reeves. I've known him since college. When he is laser focused and he's locked in, he's unstoppable. And I think we've seen that over the last 6 years. As you said, he has made his focus, his priority, making sure that we have more jobs than we have people ready to work. And we've seen that with the influx of businesses, the influx of new manufacturing facilities, the influx of all these jobs coming to Mississippians, and the way it helps Mississippians and increases their good quality of life that we have here, it just makes our state better. So, yeah, he's killing it right now. Just like President Trump made those promises delivered, our governor, Tate Reeves, made promises, and he is still delivering.
Your crystal ball does not have to be crystal clear. It can be a little
Hold on, let me
cloudy.
get it out and shine it a little bit. Go ahead.
Well, it's where I'm headed. It can be a little cloudy, and we can still see into that crystal ball looking ahead to January when the next legislative session comes into play, and know that education is going to be a huge conversation. Jason White at the Neshoba County Fair, he was not hiding behind any words. He was not masking what his priority is, and that's universal school choice. That is not something that the lieutenant governor has been in favor of. What's that fight going to look like? And you've referenced the Republican Party platform. Where does the party stand on universal school choice?
The party platform is clear. We are in favor of parents and children having the freedom to get the education that a child needs. At the end of the day, the priority, the goal is to educate children. So why in the world would we be doing anything else and directing our money to institutions or to adults when the focus should always be on the child?
And the debate has been about where the money goes and should it follow if it goes to private schools. We'll see. That's going to be a big conversation. Mike Hurst, thanks as always for coming in. Great visiting with you.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate the time.
Mike Hurst, my guest. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi. We'll wrap it up with you coming up next.